Isn't this great? I love Nashville. I'm so excited to be here. Golly, thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's probably not so easy to get downtown. I'm staying at this hotel around the corner, and apparently there's something going on with the country music. So anyway, I have to say thanks to Parnassus Books, of course, and Nikki and everybody there, and Anne most especially, who's so sorry she's not with us tonight because she has a grave illness in her family. So she sends her love. And I'll tell her that you all said hey, and you hope she's doing okay. So anyway, but I am super honored to be here. This is a very big deal. So I want to talk about just a few things. My new book, By Invitation Only. I'm going to talk about next year's book and talk about what's going on in the Frank family house. And then I hope we do some Q&A, because Q&A is always fun. So By Invitation Only, it's like the dumbest thing I ever named a book. It's terrible. Everywhere there's an event going on for me, on the internet it says, come meet Dorothea Benton Frank, by invitation only. So people think it's a private event. So they're calling the stores, how can I get a ticket? How can I get a ticket? I'm like, so I'm chasing these events down before I get to the next city. And I've been on the road since May 8th, so I'm having a big time, to say, God, please, no, it's open, it's free. In fact, tonight, even my publicist in New York said, go hear Dottie at Parnassus Books. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be there. I'm going to be at the library. It's like, I don't get paid enough to do two jobs. Okay, so anyway, people always want to know where books come from. How do you write 19 books? How do I write a book a year? And the answer to that is I really don't do much of anything else besides cook. Cook dinner for my sweet husband. Right. The old ball and chain couldn't be with us tonight. No, he's great. He really is. He always says to me, I know one of these days you're going to write a book and I'm going to be in it. And I always say, oh, Peter, I would never do that to you. He's in every single one. Anyway, so the story is we've had 2 weddings and a baby born in our family in the last 3 years. So I became a grandmother. Yes, it's the coolest thing ever. It is. It is a particular joy that I did not know was still out there to be had. I thought all my best days were behind me. And the day I got that child in my arms, which was when he was about 15 minutes old, that's it. I mean, I'm lost. So I told Peter, I'm in love with a much younger man. And I am. I mean, his name is Ted. And we have TED Talks every day. I don't know if y'all do, Facebook Live and all that stuff with your kids, or what do you call the thing? FaceTime. Yeah, I do FaceTime with him 3 or 4 times a day, and I just love it. He knows me, on the phone. And of course, I go to Charleston as much as I possibly can to be with him. But anyway, so Ted was like the super fabulous highlight of my life ever. It's my reward for not strangling my daughter when I should have, those 300 times or more. I mean, my God, my one child would be like your 10. They suck the life out of me, I'm telling you. Anyway, so the weddings. So we had 2 weddings. My son married a girl who is so fabulous, you can't believe it. She's from the Midwest. I don't know anybody from the Midwest, so I was very excited to meet her family, and they're so nice and they're so normal. There's no drama. No, I mean, Southern families are very dramatic, right? And we live in New Jersey, and you don't even want to know what that's like. But anyway, so she's lovely, and she's a nuclear physicist, and she graduated from MIT, right? So what do we talk about? Oh my God. Actually, she's hilarious. She's a very funny, very charming young woman, and her family is super nice. I love them all except 2, and they know who they are. So, and then my daughter, of course, got married. This good news because we have a baby now. So yeah, she married an Italian guy from Connecticut. And I can remember my mother, this is so snobby, but this is Charleston, South Carolina, right? My mother would always say, just remember, we're English and French. We're English and French. And I said, but Mama, aren't we Irish? And she'd say, just a little bit. And I said, well, wait a minute, your mama's whole side of the family is Irish. And she'd say, just a little bit. Well, so my brother did that 23andMe thing, where you spit in the tube and mail it off. Guess what? We're 18% Italian. I mean, I love it. I knew there was a reason why I like to cook Italian food all my life. And I love Italy so much. I love everything Italian. Shoes, the cars, the architecture. I mean, right? Italian wine. It's one of Fellini films. I mean, on and on it goes. So So anyway, so the thought was, here we had these 2 weddings, and they were flawless, and we loved the families, and it's all good, sort of. And there was just a little drama, not much. No, it's really okay, because we don't see them all the time, so it's fine. Yeah. So I thought, but what if I really didn't like them? What if I really hated my daughter-in-law? What if I took one look at her and she made me sick? What if I had a huge fight with her mother? What if I had a big fight with my son-in-law's family? What if everything that could go wrong in a wedding went wrong? And then I thought, that's a book. That's a book. And so by invitation only, not every single thing goes wrong, because otherwise it would give you whiplash, it would drive you crazy. But when the mother of the bride meets the mother of the groom, which is about page 10, I think, all hell breaks loose and we never look back. So that just goes the whole way through the story. And it's a story about this very fancy family from Chicago with lots of money and power, and this very normal family from the Lowcountry of South Carolina who grow peaches. Big peach farmers, which of course you can't grow peaches in Charleston because there's too much salt in the earth, but it's fiction, right? So yeah, so I changed the dirt for the occasion of this story. Excuse me. Yeah, so the people in South Carolina are very normal. They've got a big old farm, they grow gorgeous, delicious peaches and all sorts of other vegetables and fruits and things for their family, and they have a roadside stand, and they've been there for 300 years, and that's just who they are. They are of the earth, and they're God-loving, God-fearing, church-going, good citizens, and then here comes the black car with Miss Fancy Pants in it. And it's kind of fun, So I really hate pretentious people. Y'all don't know me very well yet, but I don't like pretentious people at all. In fact, I don't like them at all. In fact, I don't engage when I meet someone at a party if they say, "Oh, and so where do you summer?" I go home and write about them. That's what I do. I can't bear it. So anyway, the book is doing great. We just made the New York Times list again tonight for the 3rd week. So very happy about that. Yeah, let me tell you something. It's a miracle. I'm going to church as soon as I get home and getting on my knees and thanking God, because I'm on the list with like Stephen King and David Baldacci, and Patterson has 2 books on the list, not 1, but 2. And Daniel Steele has a new one that just came out, and it's like this log jam in June of big books where all the printings, the first printings are over 1 million copies. And then there's me, and I'm sure they look at the list like the book came out at 5, and it was 4. No, it came out at 4. And it was 3 on the combined list with ebooks, which is really the more important list at this point. And I know Stephen King looked at that and said, "Who is this? Who is this girl? What is she doing here?" So anyway, next week I'm probably going to be 500 million on the list, because you get bumped off. You just get bumped. But anyway, the book is selling great, and everybody seems to love it. It's my 19th novel, which is unbelievable to me. So yeah, so that's the story on this book. And we want to do a little Q&A so we can talk a little more if any of you have already read it. So I'm working on a new book for 2019, because why not? And it's so far the title. People want to know, how do you start these things? So if I come back here next year, if they'll have me back, you're going to see the book that you actually get is probably nothing like the one I'm going to describe tonight, right? Because that's how it is. It's sort of an organic thing, and it grows and it changes as it does until I get it where I feel like it's right. So right now it's called The Queen Bee of the Beach. Yeah, and it's about a woman who's a beekeeper, right? And she's kind of odd. She's middle-aged and not very attractive, and she never married, and she stayed home to take care of Mama, which is a very Southern thing. I mean, it's really wretched. Anyway, Mama finally dies and goes to hell, and everybody's happy. And so, yeah, because she really is a pill. So I have to show a little bit of her, because that's too much fun not to use it, right? And then her sister gets dumped by her husband, and she has to come back to Sullivan's Island and live in the house with her other sister, which she's not happy about at all, because she thinks she's very chic, right? And so she's the queen bee. They call her the queen bee. But actually, it's the dumpy sister who's the beekeeper. So the only thing they really have in common is that they both are kind of hot for the guy next door. And he's a retired English professor married to a witch, right? I don't say bad words in public. usually. Anyway, one day the queen gets loose from the hive and swarms, all the other bees swarm the yard next door, and this horrible witch is stung about 1,000,000 times, and so she croaks. So, but so the question is, who let the queen out, right? So that's where I am right now. I think that the other part of this book is going to be that the sister who comes home, who's been so well behaved all of her life in this marriage, and it didn't get her anywhere because her husband dumped her anyway. I think she's going to be diagnosed with a terrible disease and that's fatal, and then she's going to sleep with every married man on the island, and she's going to be caught in public, okay, wearing a caftan and nothing else down on the beach in the moonlight. Oh Lord, she's going to be in trouble. She's going to tell everybody what she thinks of them. It's going to go on and on and on until she finally finds out that she's really not going to die. Because I knew that happened to somebody that I knew. Isn't that terrible? That's a terrible story. So in other news, hey, how are you? Just come on in. So my daughter and I just sold our first children's book. So we're pretty excited about that. Yeah, that's going to be out in May 2020. It's called Teddy Spaghetti. So named after my little grandson. And yeah, Teddy loves Italian food too. Big surprise. Daddy's Italian, grandmama's 18% Italian. All excited, yeah. So we had written another book together called Good Dog, Bad Baby. And it had 2 little palmetto bugs in the corner of each page. And they were very chic. They had like great shoes and necklaces and sunglasses, and they had bracelets on all their little, creepy arms. And they were very funny. They're Crystal and Cecile Goldbug. So yeah, it's a little nod to Edgar Allan Poe, who wrote The Goldbug on Sullivan's Island, right? So, but my agent said, so they're the Goldbug sisters, are they Jewish? I said, no, they're not Jewish, they're not anything, they're agnostic, they're bugs, And she said, and my editor said, but they're not really palmetto bugs, our gold bugs, they're really cockroaches. And I said, well, that's sort of something special in South Carolina. We pride ourselves on very large, but we call them palmetto bugs. They fly, they're wonderful. I don't know if you can train them, but they do all these things, they terrify you. So they wouldn't buy it. They didn't. HarperCollins. After 15 bestsellers with one house, they wouldn't buy my little Good Dog, Bad Baby book. So I'm still campaigning for the bugs, right? So I went and bought everybody cockroach earrings, and frames that had cockroaches all around them, and their hearts will not be moved. So anyway, so that's the story on that. So we wrote this other book, Teddy Spaghetti, and they bought it right away, and they loved it. And then I just found out today that Anne has just written 6 children's books, and she has the same editor that I do at HarperCollins. Isn't that funny? So we have all these things in common, which is so nice. Makes it even that much nicer to come here. So that's really what I wanted to tell you all about, and I'd love to take some questions. Who's got a question? That many? Yes, ma'am.
What do you like to read? Like what authors?
I read Ann Patchett. I actually do. I love Ann's books, and I also read Ann Tyler, and I like all the Anns. Anna Quinlan. Yeah. So, what else? Who else do I read? I just read Meg Wollitzer's new book, and I just read Amy Bloom's new book called The White Houses, and Meg Wollitzer's is called The Female Persuasion. And I have a pile of stuff on my nightstand. I probably read the same things you do, And then I have to read all the other girls in my genre to keep them honest. Not that I'm worried. That's okay. Yes.
Have you thought about doing a sequel to this? It really lends itself to a sequel.
You think? See, I could see it as a television series. I could see it because once you get the families combined, I think that there's real magic and all of that, because Susan's never going to fit in 100%. She just isn't. And I think it's sort of interesting to have someone who's a guest of the state in the story. So, I don't know. That's up to my editor. I'm working on this other thing now with the bees on the beach. And
then, are your books basically related? Do they have some theme in common?
The only thing that really pulls them together as a body of work, well, there are a couple of things. They mostly take place in the Lowcountry of South Carolina. Sometimes they start in Chicago, but they end up in the Lowcountry, or they start in New York and they end up in the Lowcountry, or they go to Greece and they come back to the Lowcountry. So that's one thing. And then sometimes I have characters from early books do walk-ons in later books because people say, oh, whatever happened to so-and-so, and so I'll give them a line or two in a new book so that they can say, oh, look who's here, So that's fun. But sequels really don't do as well as the original books. They never do. I've written two, Lowcountry Summer, which is a sequel to Plantation, and Return to Sullivan's Island. And the reason they don't do as well is because when I wrote Sullivan's Island, I didn't have a contract and a deadline, right? So I took 2.5 years to write the book. So I turned in an 800-page manuscript. So it's a nice big fat book, right? And while that book was going into production, which took 2 years, because it's, these big publishing houses, it takes a long time, unless you shoot somebody and then it's out next weekend with 16 color photos, right? So, so I wrote Plantation while I was waiting for Sullivan's Island to be published. And then after that, it's a book a year, so it's a lot. It picks up my cycle. I don't know if I answered the question, but there's the answer. Yes, ma'am.
I spent some time in Charleston.
Oh, you did?
What a Charleston girl does in New Jersey.
Oh, Lord, I married a Yankee. I'm being held there against my will. Don't you know that? I don't want to be in New Jersey. Somebody said to me today, I did another event at lunch, and they said, so tell me about your work environment. I said, it's my guest room because no one ever comes to see me because I live in New Jersey. It's so sad. But will y'all come? Excellent. Excellent. We'll talk later. Yes, sir.
I actually grew up going to Sullivan's Island.
Come on.
Pleasant, yeah.
No way.
I grew up in the Lowcountry. We discovered you through the Nashville Library, so it's very exciting to read a series based in the Lowcountry.
Yeah, thank you.
Just starting out, what role does the character of the place play in your writing, and what do you hear from your readers about how they respond to it?
Well, it's huge, right? That is a very good question, right? Yeah, I didn't get any good questions like that all week. That's the best one. You win. If I had a little prize, I'd give it to you. The Lowcountry is very important. It's very important to me because, this whole thing started over my whole career. My writing career began because my mother died suddenly, and my family wanted to sell my mother's house to settle her estate, and my husband wouldn't buy the house for me, and so I gave one of these. It's a little jersey combined with South Carolina. I went, bump you, Bubba, right? I'm going to write a book. I'm going to sell 1 million copies, and I'm going to buy Mama's house back, and I did. So, yeah. I didn't know. Yeah, I know. I didn't know you weren't supposed to be able to do that, So it was all about place, and it's always been about place. And the more time I've spent in New Jersey, the more I long for the Lowcountry, and I'm finally moving back there this fall. So yes, I've 20 books, right? I left there when I was about 18 years old because I thought I'd learned everything that there was to know in the whole wide world, and I may as well just take it up the road to New York, right? And I spent the next 40 years trying to get back. So, yeah, so that's how smart I was. Anyhow, yeah, the Lowcountry is very important. That's the blood-soaked land of our ancestors, right? everybody in my family has fought in every single war. We don't have any statues in the park or anything, but, we were there and we were in the wars, and, we ran grocery stores and, whatever else we were doing, nurses, teachers, doctors, all those normal things that people do. So there's all that company, a family everywhere I look. If I call my family for a potluck, I can get 50 people to dinner in about 2 hours. You just bring something, put it on the table. You want to be where somebody loves you. I don't want to live in a place where nobody cares about me. And nobody cares about me in New Jersey. I have a few good friends, but mostly at this point they've moved to Florida. I don't know why. There's nothing in Florida for me. Well, a couple of good bookstores, but that's it. So, yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite book that you've written and why?
Oh, I think probably Sullivan's Island, because, you love them all. I should tell you that this one's my favorite because I'm supposed to be selling it, right? And this is a great book. I'm told that this is my best book in 10 years. So, and everybody loves to read about weddings and, families fighting each other. It's always fun. But Sullivan's Island, I think, will always be my favorite because that's the one, that let me know I could really do this. So, yeah. It's funny, I never thought I'd be here, believe me. I'd never in a million years. Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a vivid imagination when you were?
What do you think?
How did that play into starting that first book when you wanted to buy your mother's house back, and do your characters come from something from your childhood? And
Oh, yeah. Nobody's safe. I mean, I use people I know all the time as characters. They never know it. I mean, didn't y'all read The Last Original Wife? Okay, so that's a funny book, right? Okay, so my friend Anne went on vacation with her husband. This is another book Genesis story. They were in Rome and they went out to lunch and they drank a bottle of wine at lunch. Big surprise, right? So they're walking back to their hotel, and because they've been married for 50 years, he's walking 50 feet in front of her, and she's, taking pictures with her new iPhone all over the place, and she's not looking where she's going, and she falls in an open manhole, okay? No, this is terrible. She breaks her collarbone, knocks her teeth out, that's terrible, knocks herself out, and her husband got the whole way back to the hotel before he realized she wasn't with him. And I said, oh my God, that's like the worst thing ever. That's a book. I could totally, and I got a book out of it, right? So, yeah, it's terrible. I could tell you stories about these things. They're awful stories. People are terrible to each other. It's so great for business. Yeah, it's true. It really is true. People say, you think that's a terrible story. You know that one where you scrub the toilet with your husband's toothbrush? I'm like, yeah. She goes, well, I got a better one for you. I said, okay, let's have it, sister. She says, well, my husband, I found out he was running around with his secretary. She's 35 years old. So I took all his underwear and all his socks and I turned him inside out. And then I took him up in the attic and rubbed him on the fiberglass. And then I turned him up. I said, I can use that. I sent her a huge thing of flowers. I said, thank you so much. Art imitates life. Oh, God. It's funny out there. People tell me things they should never tell anybody. Yes?
I've read every book you've ever written.
Oh, my God. Thank you.
My absolute favorite is Land of Mango Sunset.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me what was the process? What made you think of that book? Because I love it.
Thank you. Well, I've done a lot of volunteer work in between writing and my other career, which was working in the apparel industry. I ran a women's knitwear company, of all the things, but a long, long time ago. In fact, we made the ugliest cardigans you've ever seen in your life. In fact, if you tied their wrists together, you could circle the globe about 5 times with the amount of cardigans we sold. I mean, we'd sit around at night and we'd say, so what should we name this collection? They'd say, well, it's lilac, for God's sake. We said, why don't we call it hyacinth? So, that's where my writing career began, was naming colors on nasty Liam Stitch cardigans that went in the washer and the dryer, and they all had tissue pockets. Land of Mango Sunset. So where did that come from? Okay, so I did all this volunteer work. And, certain organizations that you volunteer for, they're happy to have you in any way that you come. They're just glad to have the hands, right? But then there are others that are, we don't go to meetings wearing slacks, ladies. No, ma'am, we don't do that. No, we only address our invitations with fountain pens, right? So, I've been on committees like that, not for long, but, yeah, because I think that's so stupid. But anyhow, I actually I was a trustee at the Montclair Art Museum for many years, and a girlfriend of mine had addressed, I think, a whole bin of like 500 invitations for a dance they were having, a gala, and somebody knocked over the urn of coffee into the box that was already all, done with fountain pens and stamped and the whole thing. And so they had to throw out, I don't know, maybe it was 2,000 invitations, whatever. It was a huge amount of invitations. And of course, they drummed her right out of the volunteer corps, and she was mortified and humiliated, and they snatched her ID back. And I thought, ooh, I can use that. So, right? So instead of having it in Montclair, I moved it to New York, and I made it with the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I think, as I recall. And then that's a book about perception. The story is that, things are never what you think. You know everything, right? We all think we know everything at this age. And when you see a situation, you think you can call it. Maybe not. Maybe not. And so she's Miriam, and she's very imperious, right? And very difficult and cold, I think. And then she falls in love, and that changes everything. And then she's losing her mother, and that changes everything again. So, it's a story about love and loss, I guess, and about how things really are not as they seem. If you come to Sullivan's Island and stand on my porch at Station 10 and you look out at the sunset, it is mango colored. It's gorgeous. Yeah, every night is different. And it's so beautiful that you can't remember it. I can take pictures of it, with my smartphone, right? They're not so smart. It's never as glorious as it is in person. And it takes my breath away. I mean, there's nothing that I look at in New Jersey that gives me that kind of pause. And I guess that's another reason why, the place is so important to me.
I've always said it was the closest place to heaven you would be on earth.
Oh, Lord. Oh my God, it's so hot. It's so hot, it's impossible. I don't know how I'm going to adjust to that. I'm going in September, but I don't know what's going to happen. I'll probably be up in Kennebunkport in some cheap hotel. So, because I can't bear it. Anybody else have a question? Is there a writer in the room? There's always a writer. Come on. How do you write fiction? Come on. Who's got the manuscript? Let me hear. There you go. There's one. Anybody else? There's 2, 3. Okay, I know my crowd. So here's what you do. Go to Parnassus Books and go buy Stephen King's book called On Writing. And for as scary as he is, the book is that fabulous. It tells you every single thing you need to know about how to write fiction. Not memoirs, not cookbooks, not kids' books, but adult fiction. And I must have bought 50 books to learn how to write fiction. Great first paragraphs, great opening stories, 23 major plots. Name a book. I had the darn thing, Bird by Bird. I had them all. And then I ran, after I sold my first 5 or 6 books, here came Stephen King's book. And I'm like, you son of a gun, where have you been? Going to save me an awful lot of aggravation. So over there, yes, ma'am.
When you wrote your first book, do you recall about your experience finding a publisher?
This comes under the heading of not to be believed, okay? But you know how there are some things you want to do in your life and you can never make them happen, no matter how hard you try, it just won't happen. So when I decided I wanted to write, everything happened right away. The doors just flew open. It was ridiculous. I found an agent in a week and a publisher and another agent who joined up with this agent to do the deal together and sold the book in a week. A week after that, yeah. The first printing was, I think, 850,000 copies, which was unheard of. Today they don't do that, but so I'd like to have those numbers back again. Thank you, that'd be so nice. Yeah, so that's how it happened. It happened through, I knew somebody who knew somebody, and boom, 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 I was there. And if you're looking for an agent or a publisher, the best thing to do is to position yourself. Go take an MFA course in writing at a local college and make sure you've got a professor who's published, right? Or go to some of these writing workshops that they have, because the ones where they send agents and editors there. Because believe me, publishing is always looking for the next big voice. It's not a closed club at all. So, yes, ma'am.
Where does religion play in your newest book? Do you relate to
I made the Methodists this time. Yeah. Sometimes they're Catholics, I just became an Episcopalian myself because my cousin, the Monsignor, aggravated me. That's a whole other story I'll tell you later. Yeah. I like all religions, I think it's just good to think there's something bigger than yourself out there, right? Pray to all gods, you never know. Anyway. Yes, sir.
So I grew up in a big Catholic family.
Oh my goodness. So you know it's McInerney, right?
Right.
Drives me crazy.
How big is the biggest family you've written in a book, and how complicated is it once you grow a family that big to give characters the right amount of space?
Sometimes I wonder who reads my books, because I'll get these remarks online. People say, I can't keep up with all the characters. I'm like, go back and read whoever. I'll tell them to go read. It's not a compliment. The biggest family was Sullivan's Island, where there were 6 children and 2 crazy parents, right? And crazy grandparents, and everybody was crazy, pretty much. Somebody else over here had a question. I think, yes, ma'am.
How long had you been dabbling in writing before you decided to take that on as the way to get
Not at
your
all.
house?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, I couldn't sit down and start with a short story. No, I just said, I'm writing a book. Okay, get out the way. No, but that's sort of how I guess I think I am. I don't know, I didn't think it was supposed to be hard. I mean, I always knew that I could write. I just never thought about writing for publication. When I went to school at Bishop England, we didn't have writers in residence. We read dead white men that were approved by the church. I mean, seriously, Emily Dickinson was considered a near occasion of sin because she talked about her skin. Okay? I knew it was wrong. I knew that whole thing was wrong. It's changed a lot since then. I went to school in the dark ages. Yeah, you weren't even born, but that's okay. I got shoes older than you. Anyway, yes, ma'am.
In many books, I have a portion I can open to saying this is my favorite passage in this book. By invitation only, could you open that book and say this is one of my favorite passages and read it to us?
Probably, but I don't remember, and I don't have a book. But I'll tell you what is one of my favorite passages ever written is Pat Conroy's book, South Abroad. There's a passage where the little boy is delivering newspapers. I'll never forget that. It is music. It's music. I don't think I write music. I might to somebody else's ear, but to my own, it's just me desperately trying to get the story down on paper. I mean, come back next year. I'll read for you for that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I will say, I'm from South Carolina, and I think your writing is so atmospheric and vivid. It gives me a little home fix.
Yeah, well, that's why I write it. That's why I write all of that, because I need it too, and I'm sitting in New Jersey with snow up to my eyeballs. I mean, we had 4 nor'easters in 1 month, and every one of them dropped a foot of snow. That's how that's how I write a book a year. I can't go anywhere. I can't get out of my house, so, It's true.
So you can't get your husband to move back to the South?
Oh, he's coming, he says. I mean, I hope he does. Be a lot of paperwork. Yes, ma'am.
What's been the high and the low of your career?
Well, the high has to be, selling my first book and seeing it in print. And the low is that I don't have film. Everybody I know, everybody's got a movie except me. That's how I feel like a whiner. It's terrible. And I almost had a movie 3 times, and I don't know. I don't have that karma. But it's very disappointing, because what's left after you've written 20 books? You'd love to see your work reimagined through somebody else's eyes. How much fun would that be for me? Anyway, I'd love to see Plantation on the screen, and the screenplay that was written for it was so horrible, I wouldn't even let them have it. I gave them the money back. It's terrible. So
How can you promote your books to be a film, or can your agents do that?
I do everything I can. It's just, you have to be discovered. I mean, I sell more books than anybody Hollywood never heard of, right? I mean, I've had 19 New York Times bestselling novels. I don't know. I mean, I think that they think they're character-driven and not necessarily plot-driven, although I think this one's very much plot-driven. You want more plot than that, I'd have a heart attack, right? So, yeah, and they are character-driven, but I think it's important to show strong female and strong male characters that go through some kind of change and grow. Otherwise, it's a very boring book. Yeah.
Have you thought of writing your own screenplay?
I write a book a year. And so right now I don't have time to do anything. I don't even have fingernails, I've got to stop cutting my own hair. Yes, ma'am.
Do you find that you start with an idea of a story or an idea of a character and take it?
I start with an idea of what it is I want to talk about. It's really theme. It's really theme. And then I have to figure out how do I want to show that, right? Because you don't want to tell it, right? That would be the pulpit on Sunday. I figure that out, and then I try to figure out a cast of characters that can carry some weight, each one of them, so that it doesn't look like just a main character and a bunch of cardboard on the sides, right? And then you build the story from there. How are you going to show that theme, right? So that's how it works for me. I think it's a different process for everybody, to be honest. And I think every book is different, too. How do you like that? That's not such a great thing to say, is it, if you want to write? But you have to figure it out. You have to go live in that story, in that message that you want to tell. And, Southerners, one of the things about Southern writers that I love is that we're not afraid of our hearts. You know, we lost the damn war, okay? We know that, right? We're over it, sort of. And no, it's true, you know, but we love heroes, and we love stories of glory, and we love stories of bravery and all those things. Yeah, I think about, you know, what would I die for? I think about the American Revolution, a big battle was fought right on Sullivan's Island at Breach Inlet, which Danger Thompson, I never even knew about him until I was, I don't know, 40 years old. I'd never even heard of him. Now he's got a whole little park. It was never in my textbooks. So, you know, but you think about how many men died that day at the Battle of Breach Inlet. He had a ragtag army of Catawba Indians and criminals that were released for the day, and about 100 regulation soldiers. And they were crazy, you know, and here came the British Navy and permission to cross, sir, you know, and they said, sure, y'all just come on. And so as soon as they got in the water, bang, 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 they just shot them all, you know. So I think they killed like 3,000 British sailors and saved the United States that day. It was a very big turning point in the war. I never knew it, but you start thinking about those things when I find them out, I go, wow, I never knew that, so maybe you don't know that. So I'm gonna write a story, and I'm gonna tell you about this, and I'm gonna build a whole story around it. That's Porch Lights, my book Porch Lights. And it's also, her daughter is a returning Army nurse, right? So there's a lot in there about veterans. Yeah.
You do a lot of your own research?
I do all my own research, which I love to do. That's the most fun part. That is absolutely the most fun part of what I do. You had a question back here?
How did you and Pat Conroy get to be friends?
Oh my God. You know, Pat was one of my, if he ever knew, he had a fat enough head as it was, sorry Pat, but if he ever knew the impact that he had on my life and at least another 75 people that I know, he would be astonished. He was the most generous man and hilariously funny. Hilariously funny. At his funeral, we were standing around talking afterwards, and someone said to me, well, you know, I was his favorite drunk dial. I said, you were not. I was, you know, oh. Anyway, he was wonderful to all of us. He was wonderful to other writers coming along and did everything he could to help us. I miss him every day. His wife is, as widow, sadly, is a good friend of mine. So we talk, yeah. He actually stayed at my house in New Jersey in the guest room. Hello, yeah, yes.
I have two quick things.
Sure.
First of all, going back to your history lessons that you give us, there's the way you deliver them, we don't even realize it's happening because we're so involved in the story.
That's the juju. That's the magic sauce or whatever they call it.
Charleston Chamber of Commerce gives you credit or...
Right? Right? You know, all the restaurants I write about, you think when I go there they buy me dinner? Hell no. They don't even buy me a beer. Not even a beer. I know, it's terrible.
The second thing is, I consume your audiobooks.
Okay.
I have a long commute, and I love the people that you pick to read, Robin Miles particularly.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Do you audition? Are you told?
Okay, here's my problem with audiobooks. They all sound like they're from Lower Alabama, okay? And we don't have a really super drawly Southern accent in Charleston, correct?
Well, it depends. My grandma had that Gullah accent.
Okay, where'd she live?
She lived on James Island and Sullivan.
Okay, well I spoke Gullah before I spoke English. You know, we all had a Gullah accent when we went to school. The nuns would look at us and say, what? You know, so you straightened yourself up and you lost your Gullah accent, but it's not a regulation Southern accent. So I hate them, basically. I'm sure Robin Miles is a very nice lady. She's probably here in the audience somewhere, with my luck lately. But I can't stand the Southern accents. They offend me because I don't have one and I'm the author and I don't want to hear my work read that way. So I've just asked them to please give me somebody who had like a normal voice because I sell books outside of the Southeast and I don't want people in Ohio to listen to somebody say, well, it's just so sad. Like I can't bear it. We never talked like that. My mother would have killed us. Yes, ma'am. I do. I wrote one book in third person, nobody even noticed. So I just went back to first person.
I think that's where they actually probably will write the audiobook
Maybe. I don't know, but it's obnoxious, I'm telling you. I've read one of my books on tape. I read Full of Grace. And then this, I only did it because it was a blizzard, and whoever was supposed to read it couldn't get there. So I got in my little, Ford Taurus station wagon and tromped through the slush and got to New York and did this thing every day for a week. And I got so much email from people, very nice people. They said, Ms. Frank, we don't want to hurt your feelings, but, there are people that do this for a living. It's like, true story. Yeah, it's a true story. And it's not easy to do that either. You have to you're in a tomb, basically, when you do the reading. And I have a lot of esophageal noises, apparently. You can't hear them on this mic. If you'd like, I'll put the mic down, but I don't think you'll hear anything. But in that studio, you can hear everything. It's unbelievable. Yeah. Yes, ma'am, back there.
You don't sound like you'd ever have writer's block, but if you do, how do you get past it?
A drink. No, I have writer's block every day at 8:30 in the morning when I go to my office. Are you kidding? You just push through it. If it's really bad, I would get up and just go take my dogs for a walk. My dogs went to heaven, so now I can't have block anymore until I get to South Carolina and get new dogs. So, yeah, but everybody gets block. Yep.
First of all, I want to thank you for writing such wonderful, strong,
middle-aged characters.
Barnes & Noble says I invented henlit. It's not chicklit, it's henlit. Thank you. Well, there was nothing in the market to read that I wanted to read beyond once you finish with Anita Shreve or somebody who's so serious, right? What am I going to read for fun? I don't want to read romance novels, I mean, they're icky.
How do you come up with character names?
Oh, I sell them. I do. I give all these different organizations get in touch with me and they say, we need an auction item. Would you give us some books? And I say, sure. Why don't I give you the right to have a character named for someone who comes to your event? And so every year I raise about $50,000 for literacy and for battered women and children. Yeah. It's not a lot, but it helps, I mean, every little bit helps in those situations. And so that's why some of my characters have these funky names, like Vernell. Don't you love that name? Oh, Vernell. She's a real person. She gave $2,500 to literacy in, where was I? Somewhere in Virginia a few years ago. And so, yeah. So now she's immortal. What price immortality? Yes, I can be bought. Yep. Yes, I'm just kidding. What?
I hope this makes sense to you.
Oh, dear.
Do your characters ever surprise you?
Well, we'll have none of that, will we? No, when I write in alternating first-person voices, then I can have the characters surprise each other. And there is the occasion where I'll walk away from something I'm deep into and say, wait a minute, she would never say that. So I've had the character maybe slip into somebody else's voice. So I have to go back and change that. But do they surprise me? They had better not. They better be right where I left them the night before when I get back to work the next day. I don't want to hear about it. I'll have 1 year, okay? That includes holidays and book tour and everything else. Yes, ma'am.
You had mentioned that you haven't had a movie yet, but in Folly Beach, you wrote what I
I know.
a really great play.
Right.
Has that ever been picked up?
No. Piccolo Spoleto wanted me to pull it out and put it together and get it on the stage at the Dock Street in Charleston. But, it's like, please, no. I mean, I told them they could do it if they wanted to, but they didn't do it. So maybe at some point somebody will do it when they get interested enough in the history of Dorothy Hayward and not DuBose Hayward and George Gershwin. But remember that Dorothy Hayward, ladies, is the one, gentlemen, who adapted Porgy for the stage, not George Gershwin and not DuBose Hayward, her husband. It was Dorothy who did it. And Dorothy is from, God save us, Ohio, okay? And she went down to Charleston and got it, right? And not very good. Anyway, it was her production of Porgy on the stage, not Porgy and Bess, just Porgy, with no music, that ran 379 performances and made a lot more money than Gershwin's. and you never hear about Dorothy Hayward. So that's why I wrote that book, because I was on the board of the South Carolina Historical Society, and I was talking to the executive director, a fabulous woman. Her name is Faye Jensen. If you ever go to Charleston and you want to go there, shoot me an email and I'll hook you up with her, because she's the best. My son used to work for her. He called her Faye Dunaway. He was a kid. But anyway, I said, so what do you have in the stacks? And she said, you ought to read the Hayward papers. I said, okay. So I read them, and I found this whole story, this whole untold story. And I think she had a lot of money. She had a lot of money. And DuBose Hayward's mother was peculiar. Would you like to hear how peculiar? Okay. So when her husband died in a mill accident, she said, oh, Lord, who's going to cut my toenails? True story. It's a true story. Isn't that great? So there's all kind of stuff in the Historical Society you don't know until you get there. Yeah, it's great stuff. Yes, over here.
I just read, what's that book, Same Beach Next Year.
Oh, yeah.
I literally finished it a couple days ago. What made you write about meeting your last love, or your love of your youth? Because that was really caught me off guard, the vulnerability of a woman feeling insecure in her marriage because of this interaction.
So the story is about St. Beach Next Year. I don't know if y'all read that or not, but my question was, I had read an article in the New York Times about what really is infidelity. When does infidelity begin? Does it begin when you look at a guy or whoever you're looking at or whatever you're looking at, and you say, oh God, that's it for me, I want that, and you're just thinking it. Does it begin then, or do you have to go get a room, right? So that was the question. And in my mind, it begins when you spend too much time thinking about it, right? So that's what that story is about. And so how precious are Adam and Eve? Isn't that the most obnoxious? So I thought so. Love Cookie, I want to become Cookie. Cookie's my favorite character. She's so evil. Yeah. She's just how you want to be. She runs off with this cheese guy who's Norwegian, doesn't speak a word of English. He comes to visit everybody in clogs with a big wheel of cheese. Got in a white dinner jacket. It's very funny. If y'all haven't read it, it's a funny book. It's in paperback. It's not like, it's not like you're going to miss the mortgage if you buy that one. But or you can borrow it from the library, right, for nothing. So there you go. So maybe one more question, and then we'll wrap this up. And if y'all want to have me sign books, I'll be happy to sign your books for you. If you brought books, that's fine too. Anybody? One more question? Yes, ma'am?
What are your favorite restaurants in Charleston?
Oh, my favorite restaurants in Charleston. Well, starting on the Isle of Palms, I love Coto del Pesce, which is right on the front beach. I think it's the best Italian seafood that I've eaten anywhere, outside of Italy, right? And also I love, there's another one there called the Long Island Cafe that has the best fried seafood that you're going to get in Charleston, right? On Sullivan's Island, I love High Time. Tuesday nights, they have small plate night, you'll be glad to know. And I go there with my friends, and we order a bunch of stuff and a bunch of drinks and have fun. And I also love The Obstinate Daughter. So The Obstinate Daughter is there. My son-in-law is the sous chef at the sister restaurant called the Wild Olive on Johns Island. Downtown, how much time do we have? I like The Ordinary very much. I love the grill at Charleston Place. But I know Mickey, the guy who's the maitre d', I've known him for a million years, 30 years or something. So I love to go there because it's nice when I go home to see somebody I know. There are a lot of restaurants. Every time you turn around, there's a new one opening up, right? I love Fig. Fig's the best, right? You can't get in there. You have to make a reservation like a month in advance. Who has the time? Who can remember? I don't even know where I'm going tomorrow. Maybe it's Columbus, maybe it's Cleveland. I'm not sure. So, yeah, so that's it. But I like to cook also. So I do a lot of cooking when I'm there because I like to just get in my kitchen, which is disgusting, this kitchen. But anyway, never mind, I'll fix it later. I'm not exactly there to do these things. So, yeah. So my husband and I collect wine also. That's a little hobby we have going. Also on a list for a liver donor, I think. Not really. Anyway, y'all, I cannot tell you how tickled to pieces I am to be in Nashville. This is just like the best thing. So get to come to this beautiful library and be here in this beautiful space. And I know I'm in between you and a cocktail. So we're going to wrap it up, and then I'll sign some books for you. Thank you so much.